Chapter 8. We have got to make decisions. Successful leaders have the courage to take action while others hesitate. John C. Maxwell. Vacillating people seldom succeed. Successful men and women are very careful in reaching their decisions and very persistent and determined in action thereafter. L.G. Elliot. Managers of firms need to make decisions. Lots of decisions. In business, opportunities can present themselves continuously. All decisions require managers to predict the future to some extent, either for a short time or for a long time into the future. This is never totally straightforward. How can a firm's accounts help managers make these decisions? Accounting is backward-looking. It is a record of what has happened to a firm in the past. How can accounting possibly help managers make decisions that require managers to think about the future? Or could it rather hinder them? This is the issue we will consider in this chapter. We will first look at decisions that only require managers to consider the short-term future, say the next few months or up to about a year in the future. These short-term decisions may only have implications for a firm for a short while. For example, Deloitte, an accounting firm, may decide to accept a contract to provide professional services to a client over the next few months. Alternatively, these decisions might have longer-term implications, but can be readily reversed or changed in the short term. For example, the decision by an institutional investor, such as the Future Fund, Australia's sovereign wealth fund, to enter an investment management contract with Macquarie Investment Management, a fund manager, to manage part of its fixed interest portfolio. These sorts of arrangements are usually expected to last for many years, but can usually be terminated by the institutional investor with 1 month's notice if the fund manager fails to perform satisfactorily. We will look at how managers need to decide what costs are relevant to their decision and how accounting can help or hinder them in doing this. We will see that a range of words and ideas can be associated with a firm's costs, such as sunk, incremental, avoidable, unavoidable, replacement, fixed, variable, or opportunity. There are a lot of different types of costs and a lot of different concepts about costs. How might accounting help or hinder managers to focus on relevant costs and relevant income in making decisions? We'll also see how managers can use accounting to help them focus on the contribution of aspects of a firm's activities to a firm's profitability. This is a key concern for managers of a firm. Some decisions of managers require firms to commit substantial amounts of limited capital to a firm's operations. As these decisions can significantly affect a firm's economic and business realities for many years into the future and are often difficult to reverse or change, they require managers to put effort and care into predicting the future. This requires managers to compare money invested today with expected future returns several years into the future. We will consider a few techniques managers can use, some involving a consideration of the time value of money. That is, money is worth more to us now than in the future, and some that do not. We will consider how accounting, with its focus on past events of a firm, can possibly help managers predict the future. After all, managers are the ones running firms and making the decisions. No one else is doing this, and they need information about their firm to help them do this. 8.1. What costs are relevant? Making good decisions is a crucial skill at every level. Peter Drucker. The first rule in making decisions is to focus on those aspects of a situation relevant to a decision and to ignore those aspects not relevant to the decision. This should help us make better decisions with better outcomes for people with a genuine interest in our firms. In any decision, there are costs and benefits to consider. In most business situations, there is a lot of complexity. There is often a lot going on. With costs and benefits, or which costs and benefits are relevant to a decision, which are not? And how can accounting possibly help managers focus on what is relevant and safely ignore what is not? This is what we'll look at in this section. Focus on what is relevant. Costs and benefits that are relevant for managers to consider when making decisions are those costs and benefits expected to change because of the decision being made. Sunk costs are costs that have been incurred because of past decisions. They are costs that have already been paid or costs a firm cannot avoid paying in the future. Sunk costs cannot be changed as a result of future decisions. Examples of sunk costs in business may be advertising costs or the costs of researching a new product idea that have already been incurred. Because sunk costs cannot be changed, they are irrelevant to future decisions and so should be ignored. When managers are seeking to decide between alternative opportunities, the costs and benefits common to each alternative are also not relevant to the decision. These costs will be incurred or benefits gained regardless of the opportunity selected. Only costs and benefits that differ between alternative opportunities are relevant to a decision. These costs are called differential or incremental costs. For example, the managers of Ryman Healthcare may be considering a few alternative options for the development of a new retirement village on a site it owns in Essendon in Melbourne. The cost of the site would be a common cost to all options it would consider. However, it is not a sunk cost, as this cost could be changed because of future decisions. For example, the site could be sold if it was decided not to develop the site. However, the cost of the site would not be a relevant cost when choosing between alternative options for developing the site, as it would be a common cost to all options being considered. Another way of thinking about whether a cost is relevant to a decision is to ask whether a cost could be avoided. For example, Ryman Healthcare would be paying council rates each year on its site in Essendon. It would need to continue paying council rates no matter which option to develop the site its managers selected. The cost of paying council rates would be unavoidable and so would be irrelevant to the decision. However, if the managers of Ryman Healthcare were also considering the option of not developing the site and instead selling it, then the council rates on the site would be an avoidable cost and would be relevant to the decision. Everything is limited. Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that's the stuff life is made of. Benjamin Franklin. We saw in Chapter 5, Section 5.4, how planning that is accompanied with consistent and sustained action can help to get time on our side. Otherwise, all that happens is that time will simply pass. My father died just short of his 91st birthday. Throughout his life, he kept up with two friends from school. Both friends died a year or two before him. This is a reality for all of us, wherever we are in life. We are all on the conveyor belt of life, and at the end of life, we drop off the conveyor belt. In this life, the conveyor belt does not go on forever. Time in our world is limited. The implication of this is that for everything we choose to do each day with our time and energies, we are choosing not to do a whole heap of other stuff. A whole heap of stuff that we will never be able to do that day because we will have used it up doing something else. And the number of days we will live and do stuff is strictly limited. very limited. It is the same in business. The opportunity cost is the real cost of everything a firm does. This is because all resources, all life, everything that a firm can get its hands on is limited. Everything is limited. Everything. The opportunity cost is the maximum or best benefit that could be obtained by any resource available to a firm. Also, if a resource of a firm would need to be replaced as the direct result of a future decision of a firm, the cost of replacing that resource is the relevant cost to consider rather than the previous cost of purchasing that resource in the first place. This is called the replacement cost. What are the implications of this reality of scarcity or of limits on the way managers make decisions in firms? The key implication is this: managers of firms will face many more opportunities to do things than they will have resources and time to do them. Regardless of the size of a firm, its geographic reach, or the amount of resources it can access, all managers of all firms face this basic reality of life and of business. We need to make decisions within constraints. And the only costs and benefits relevant to a decision are those that relate to the future, not to the past. Some costs are not relevant. They are the result of past decisions already made. Future decisions will not affect them one way or the other. Only differential or incremental costs and benefits are relevant to a decision. These are the costs and benefits that will differ depending on the decision made. In Chapter 5, Section 5.4, we also saw a much more subtle factor to consider is the opportunity cost of a decision. Usually when we do anything, there are many things we cannot do at the same time. Is what we have chosen to do the best choice, or was there a better use of our limited resources? We also saw that replacement cost of an existing resource of a firm can be relevant in some situations. And we have considered some ideas about what costs and benefits are relevant to decisions. Managers must make decisions all the time. It is a constant demand on them. They are, after all, in the driver's seat of their firms. We will now consider whether accounting, with its focus on the past activities of a firm, can help or hinder managers' focus on relevant costs and benefits, which typically relate to the future, when making decisions. 8.2. Focusing on contribution. I've learned that you shouldn't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You need to be able to throw something back. Maya Angelou. I've found the paradox that if I love until it hurts, then there is no hurt, but only more love. Mother Teresa. In life, do we seek to contribute to those around us, or do we seek to take from others as much as we can and give or contribute as little as possible? This whole issue of contribution is a key issue for managers to focus on when making decisions for a firm. Just as we prefer people in our lives that contribute to us, encourage us and affirm us, so managers are looking for alternatives they expect will contribute the most to the fixed costs and profits of their firm. It is this contribution, which they expect from various possible alternatives, that is a key aspect for managers to focus on when making decisions. Contribution. In Chapter 6, Section 6.4, we considered the concepts of fixed and variable costs. Fixed costs do not change with changes in volume or activity levels within the ranges we are considering. Variable costs do change in direct proportion to changes in volume or activity levels. We also saw that if we change volume or activity sufficiently, then all costs will vary. None will be fixed. But in the context of different decisions, some costs will tend to be fixed and others variable. We also saw in Chapter 6 that contribution margin, CM, is the difference between sales revenue, S, and variable costs, VC. CM equals S minus VC. If you remember nothing else about management accounting, remember this relationship. Focusing on our contribution is also very useful in all aspects of our lives. Where am I contributing? What can I do to contribute the most to others and to myself? Where can I make a difference? In the same way, it is very useful in business. Shriro Holdings is a listed Australian company involved in home appliances and consumer products in Australia and New Zealand. One of its businesses is Robin Hood, which manufactures and distributes kitchen range hoods, canopy hoods, ducting systems, laundry tubs, ironing centres, and food waste disposers in Australia and New Zealand. Prior to 2002, Robin Hood was a private company owned jointly by its managers and by private equity investors. In the 1990s, Robin Hood hit some difficulties with its business. The firm had expanded its product range and was distributing a wide range of appliances. Yet it started to find it was making less money, not more. A new chief executive of Robin Hood examined carefully the contribution margin of each product and discovered many of the products the firm was distributing were not contributing to the firm's fixed costs and profit. Indeed, they were generating negative contribution margins. The new chief executive immediately reduced the firm's product range substantially. The firm was able to grow its profits significantly, with the remaining products all contributing to the firm's fixed costs and profits. In other words, all the remaining products had positive contribution margins. With an emphasis on design and innovation of a more limited and focused product range, Robin Hood expanded its business in both New Zealand and Australia and grew the contribution margins of its products and its profits. It is important to avoid having products with negative contribution margins that take more from the firm in variable costs than they give in sales. But this does not mean we simply want products with positive contribution margins. If a firm faces no constraints in relation to its access to various resources and to the demand for its products or services, and if its existing fixed costs are unavoidable, regardless of which decisions it makes, then all opportunities a firm has should be taken if they make a positive contribution to a firm's fixed costs and profits. This will be the way to earn the most profits for a firm. But this is never the case. It is never the case in our lives that there are no constraints or limits, and it is never the case in business. Everything is limited, so we need to make decisions within constraints. Focusing on the contribution of various alternatives we are considering by concentrating our attention on their contribution margin will help us make better decisions. But be careful. Seeking to maximise the contribution to fixed costs and profits can help to maximise benefits to equity investors in a firm. However, there are many other parties with genuine interests in firms than equity investors. There are those who provide debt to firms. There are customers, suppliers, employees, unions, other special interest groups, and the general community. A successful firm needs to contribute to all people with a genuine interest in a firm. Focusing on contribution margin focuses solely on the interests of equity investors. Also, there will be many qualitative factors not captured in the accounting numbers we are using to calculate contribution margins. Managers need to take account of much more than what is incorporated into the accounting numbers. However, a focus on quantitative contribution margins can certainly help to support decisions made by managers within constraints and protect managers from striking out into new directions and with new products that may not be providing adequate contribution margins. To help us think about how accounting may help managers make decisions, let us look at decisions with just two constraints. One being limits on how much of a resource or input we can obtain, resource constraint, and the other being the maximum demand for a product, market demand constraint. Decisions with just two constraints. One important decision managers must make is how much of various products should a firm obtain or produce and seek to sell. These are called product mix decisions. What relative weighting of products should a firm have? In this situation, the firm can access as many resources as it needs, except for one resource, and is limited as to how much of each product it can sell. Of course, business decisions can be much more complex than this. However, equally in business, keeping things simple and focusing on the key essentials can be a powerful way to approach making decisions. This is the approach to use when making product mix decisions with these two constraints. One a resource constraint, the other a market demand constraint. Calculate the contribution margin for each product. Eliminate immediately any products that provide a negative contribution margin, remembering the situation with Robin Hood. Calculate the contribution margin per unit of the resource constraint for all the remaining products that provide a positive contribution margin. Rank each product by contribution margin per unit of resource constraint. Decide to sell products with the highest positive contribution per unit of resource constraint until demand for the product is exhausted or the scarce resource is completely used up. Let us look at a simplified example of Robin Hood, which, as we saw, is one of the businesses of Shririo Holdings. The manager of Robin Hood is seeking to decide the best product mix for the firm and is considering 5 different products to sell. These products are the Island Canopy, the Wall Canopy Range Hood, the Super Tub Classic, the ICI 300 Ironing Centre, a fold-up ironing centre, and the Scrap Eater Waste Disposal. You might like to visit Robin Hood's website to see the firm's actual product range, which the firm's current managers have decided to produce and sell. The selling price, variable costs and contribution margins for each product are set out in Figure 8.1 below. Figure 8.1, Robin Hood Simplified Product Mix Decision, Contribution Margins. Note, these figures are purely fictional and bear no relationship to the real figures for these products of Robin Hood in any way. We can see immediately from Figure 8.1 that the Scrap Eater Waste Disposal has a negative contribution margin. We can dismiss this product from further consideration. Including any amount of this product in our product mix decision will reduce our profitability, in much the same way Robin Hood did in the past by adding further products to its product range. The manager of Robin Hood now has just 4 products to consider in its product mix decision: Island Canopy, Wall Canopy Range Hood, Super Tub Classic, and ICI 300 Ironing Centre. Let us say there is a worldwide shortage of steel caused by strong global economic growth. This means Robin Hood is only able to access 100 tonnes or 100,000 kilograms of steel next year. This resource constraint threatens to have a major impact on Robin Hood's business. Which product mix decision by the firm will maximise the firm's profit and minimise the impact of the current world steel shortage on the firm? The manager now calculates the contribution margin per unit of steel used for each product. This is shown in Figure 8.2 below. Figure 8.2 Robinhood Simplified Product Mix Decision, Constraints in Market Demand and Steel. As can be seen in Figure 8.2, ACCT11059 Ironing Centre has the highest contribution margin per kilogram of steel used. For every kilogram of steel used to make each ACCT11059 ironing centre, Robinhood would receive a contribution margin of $200. The manager needs to include as much of this product in Robinhood's product mix as it can sell. The market demand for this product is expected to be at 10,000 units. Robinhood could meet this expected level of market demand for this product without exhausting its supply of steel. The manager decides to include 10,000 units of ACCT11059 ironing centre in the firm's product mix, which will require 5,000 kilograms of steel, 10,000 units times 0.5 kilograms. If we deduct 5,000 kilograms from our constraint of 100,000 kilograms, this leaves the firm with 95,000 kilograms of steel it can use to produce other products. The manager sees that the island canopy has the next highest contribution margin per kilogram of steel. The manager needs to include as much of this product in its product mix as it can. The market demand for the island canopy is 100,000 units. As each unit requires 2 kilograms of steel to produce, 100,000 units would require 200,000 kilograms of steel. 100,000 times 2. However, after producing 10,000 units of ACCT11059 ironing centre, Robinhood only has 95,000 kilograms of steel available. This means it could produce 47,500 units, 47,500 units of the island canopy. 95,000 divided by 2 equals 47,500. As this would use up all the steel available to Robinhood, the firm could not produce any more units of the island canopy and would not be able to produce any units of the wall canopy range hood or Super Tub Classic. The product mix decision that would maximise the contribution margin of Robinhood is set out in Figure 8.3. Figure 8.3, Robinhood Simplified Product Mix Decision, Contribution Margins. The total contribution margin for Robinhood would be $15.25 million, with $14.25 million coming from sales of island canopy and $1 million from sales of ACCT11059 ironing centre. No other combination of sales of its products would give Robinhood as much total contribution margin. Of course, there may be some important issues for the business not included in this analysis if Robinhood decided to not produce and sell any island canopies and wall canopy range hoods. By focusing on the contribution of products to a firm's fixed costs and profits, managers can make decisions about which products a firm should sell. It can also help managers make a range of other decisions, including whether to make a product or service in-house, as Robinhood does with its super tubs, or whether to outsource the production of its products to other parties, as Robinhood does with its scrap eater waste disposal. We have been looking at short-term decisions, such as product mix decisions, which require managers to focus on the next few months or up to a year or so into the future. There are other decisions that can have longer-term implications for a firm and which require managers to look out further into the uncharted future of their firm. In the next section, we will look at how accounting can potentially support managers in making long-term decisions.